sending you this record. I had to let her talk. I will send you this recording. It'll be attached to a YouTube video that will be only visible to the participants, to the people who have the link. So it's not going to be out on YouTube. And for those of you that were on an earlier discussion, that's the same with your YouTube link as well. So as always, I like to start any discussion or class with a land acknowledgement. So I want to acknowledge that we are all on stolen land, and that I am in Salem, Oregon, which means I am on Kalapuya land, and I am grateful to be able to live, work, and learn on the native lands of the Kalapuya people. So throughout this discussion group series, we have talked about a bunch of super fun topics. We've talked about control, we've talked about burnout, we've talked about procrastination, making big changes, accountability. All of these things, even though I'm ostensibly the financial coach, have only secondarily and tertiary impacts on our finances. So while we are talking about failure today, my intent is not that we're going to be talking specifically about finances, but I'm sure that you can extrapolate out and see how failures can impact our finances in every possible way. So also, this is probably not going to go. I have a good scaffold for where I think the conversation is going to go, and a good thing, a tool to share at the end. But I don't exactly know where it's going to go. Who knows? That's why it's a discussion and why it's fun every time. We're probably not going to talk so much about the entrepreneurial mindset, fail fast for fail forward, fail often, which I think is a great mindset. And I think we'll probably get close to that. But that's not my intent, is to talk about that. You don't need me for that. It's pretty hypey. It's pretty buzzy, that sort of mindset talk. What I think the intention was with this particular topic is talking about us reminding ourselves of our failures, right? Like, so this is kind of an internal, as most of these topics have been. So I kind of want to open up with the icebreaker is, how many times a day, on average, do you remind yourself of your past quote unquote failures? I'll go first, and then we'll popcorn around. I'll pick the next person picks the next person. I would say probably 4 to 5 times a day. So I'm going to go with Adriana.
I was thinking 3 or 4 times a day. So that sounds about right. Candace?
I'll see you and raise you. And no, I'm kidding.
It's not a competition.
I'll go with 5.
Okay.
No, it's not a competition. It's a competition with myself to reduce that number, but that's not really happening. So it's a failure. So maybe 6.
That was very vulnerable and very open. I appreciate that. I'm going to withhold pushing back on that, although you know that I want to push back on that.
Oh, of course.
Looks like Paula is available. So Candace, if you want to pick Paula, we'll let Letitia answer in chat. So.
Yeah, well, hi. As I said, I'm sorry I'm lying in bed, but it's 2 a.m. here, past
it is 2
a.m. Yes, so it's a good place to be under the duvet. I think I remind myself of failure definitely multiple times a day, but not particularly in the day. It's when I'm relaxing, when I'm going to bed. During the day, I'm too busy it's like pain. You don't maybe feel a nagging pain during the day because you're engaged in other stuff, but when you relax and go to bed, you realize that you have that, I don't know, joint pain or something like that. So that is the moment when it kicks in.
Does anybody else notice that as well? That's a really wonderful pattern, Paula.
I'm usually thinking that when I'm stopping to think about, well, gee, how am I going to do this? I don't know. Last time I insert negative comment here, or something. It's at a stopping moment but it's not at the end of the day. It's an ongoing, just like other negative habits, like shooting and stuff like that. But yeah, but it's not when I'm in the middle of the task. It's when I'm trying to think about, well, how am I going to do the task? So it's in
Okay.
cogitation mode.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
in-
kind of
in
in
that
those
moment.
those contemplation. Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of
Keep
thinking
this
of
up.
those like in those pause moments of like being overwhelmed.
Mm,
Letitia has written in the comments that it's on
yeah.
her mind all the time.
Yep. Yeah, we're kind of bathed in it, aren't we? If not overtly, it's kind of, it might be trucking along there in the background. We're gonna talk about this later when we get to kind of talking about the tool, but this is important, like noticing the pattern around when we are reminding ourselves of failure. That observation in and of itself can be fairly telling, like if there's a certain person around. I early on was working with someone who was experiencing domestic violence, like was still actively within that relationship. And one of the things I asked her to do, which was difficult, and we may talk about this, is I asked her to tally, just notice and track the times when she was shaming herself. So using that kind of failure, obligation, I shouldn't, I can't believe that what's wrong with me, that kind of, so both failure, reminding herself of past fails, but also we were holding it open for a lot of things. And she came back after, doing this for just a couple of days. And she noticed that every time her partner was around her, that incidence ticked up. And the rest of us right this second can go, yeah, duh, yeah, absolutely. Right. But she needed to see that pattern for herself. That was not something that was for me to say. So understanding the patterns around when we're doing it, I think is probably important as well. So end of the day, right? When our brains, when the activity starts to settle out. And I also heard sort of that liminal or transition times. And then sometimes for some of us, myself included, it's just kind of all the time. It's just kind of a little ticking, a little like a little rhythm to it. So it is going to be individualistic. And I think that that's important, like observing for that. So we clearly, there's 5 of us, and I'm sure if there was 100 of us on this call, that we could, if I asked for a show of hands at the beginning and asked, like, does anybody here just sometimes, occasionally or frequently remind themselves of past failures? I'm certain that 100% of people would raise their hands, right? So this is a very common, very normal thing. So what is it about reminding ourselves about failure? Why are we doing this to ourselves? We're clearly doing it for a purpose. Otherwise, we wouldn't keep doing it.
Because we have aspirations for better stuff.
Mm-hmm. What else, guys? What is the purpose of reminding ourselves of our failures?
Try to not make mistakes again.
Mm-hmm.
The same mistakes.
And by extrapolation, not hurt the same people. I mean, it's like the next, I think about how I hurt people. I mean,
Okay.
I think you know what I mean, but it's kind of like, gee, I guess I hurt their feelings today or something like that. And
Okay.
just like I did yesterday, or, whatever.
Okay. So using it as a reflective tool, a change-making tool. Are we trying to teach ourselves a lesson?
Yes.
yeah, reliving that kind of shame feeling so that we don't have to put ourselves in that position again, I guess.
Mhm.
Love that.
Perhaps it's not a conscious thing to reflect on the details that could avoid us the same mistake in the future, but definitely by relieving or leaving the shame or the details of the mistake is a, how can I say, is a byproduct. The fact that we can then learn is like a reflection that teaches us.
I love that. So here's what I'm hearing so far about why we either consciously like walk ourselves through the process of picking apart a past choice, or we can do this unconsciously, like Paula said as well, like that super fast, super quiet thought, like, ugh, I'm the worst, right? Letitia says reminding yourself of failure, change making tool, also ingrained as one of those choices and failing. Let's talk about that. Like I don't honestly believe that if we didn't have this modeled for us, we would just come up with this shit on our own, right? Like, excuse this, you all are comfortable with my swearing at this point, right? Everybody knows me well enough at this point. So, and I think that going back in time and kind of finding out where this was modeled for us, like where we learned this behavior of shaming ourselves or failing ourselves or reminding ourselves of failure, I think that's important, but I do think that's work best out with a therapist. But for going forward from it, I don't know that understanding where that came from is super important. We can move forward from reminding ourselves of failure without deeply understanding where that messaging came from. But it's important to recognize that we got that messaging from somewhere. We've seen it modeled for us. I mean, probably if we stopped and took a look at our environments, it's probably everywhere. We probably hear other people say it, whether they're close to us or not. We probably hear it in the media. We probably see it and hear it pretty much all the time. And so it's like, it's one of those, what's the old phrase? Like you tell a lie enough times and it's going to seem true. I didn't say that right, but like that sort of repetition gets it sort of wired right into our gray matter, right? And it seems very logical, right? Like I think what people want out of reminding themselves of failure is what I do with a client when we're developing their budgeting system. Ugh, hate that word, is that we, especially the first couple, are usually a hot mess. And we take that hot mess and we pick it apart and we look at it. So the postmortem, like the diagnosis, the understanding of what went wrong, and we're using that to evaluate that particular system. I think that's what we want out of evaluating ourselves for shame, like looking for that shame and bringing it up again. But it's not, we're not, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm talking too much. It's discussion. It's not Hannah time. Okay, so calling back a little bit. If this is supposed to be a change-making tool, if this is supposed to help us reflect, move forward, do better, not make the same mistakes, not hurt people, how's it working, guys? I mean, give it a grade.
C minus.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Okay.
D minus.
D. Oh,
Yeah, is borderline. Yeah,
it's borderline.
like could do better.
Failure, you could do better. You failed.
And I feel ashamed of that too. No.
See, and this is kind of what I want to start pulling apart a little bit, is that we are using reminding ourselves of failure as a tool, as a system. And we are evaluating ourselves within that. What we need to be doing is evaluating the system, the tool. As many of you know, I absolutely cannot stand the wants versus needs. And I'll use this as an example, and we can translate it directly out onto failure. But I hate the wants versus needs analysis because the world does not fall into nice, simple categories like wants and needs. There's no such thing as good or bad choices. This is also where we don't give ourselves a bunch of grace on our past choices as well. The world is too complex to fully be able to call them everything into want and need. So my job with my clients is to kind of build a different system for decision making around wants versus needs, because I'm sure I've told some of you the story of me in the bagpipe band, really, really sweaty after like an hour and a half of a march with that big freaking drum, all kilted out.
Wool socks.
Wool socks with a stupid hat that gives you sunburn and how somehow makes you hotter, right? And I did not put any water in my car that morning. So I determined in my intelligence that I was not going to make it the 25-minute trip home without dying. Like I needed to get some water, right? So I walk into the convenience store, I walk over, I grab the bottle of water. Okay, so you tell me right now, is this bottle of water a want or a need?
That's a need. Depends. Did you have water on the I was going to call it a hike, on the route? No, huh?
In
That's a
Adriana's
need.
mind, if it has bubbles, it's a want, and if it's regular water, it's a need.
That's Adriana's threshold. Paula, do you think that's a want or a need?
I'm on the fence because it's the point of view, like from your point of view, it was a need. From an external observer, it's like, honestly, you can make it 25 minutes.
I could probably have made it. 25 minutes.
Yes.
I was going to die. So something as simple as a bottle of water, we can't quickly come to a consensus whether that's a want or a need, right? So that tells me that system, the system of the wants versus needs analysis is not a good one. It's garbage. We can now let's extrapolate that, kind of like, let's evaluate the tool of using failure as a change tool, using failure as a self-improvement tool. And we can evaluate the strategy itself, not ourselves, the strategy itself. So that's why, like, it doesn't sound like it's doing very well as a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So if what we want from reminding ourselves of failure is doing better, not repeating the same mistakes, reflection, change tool, not having to do that same kinds of things, and that's whether it's a conscious thought process or an unconscious sort of zippy mental routine, if that's what we want from it, what are the actual outcomes? What is it actually doing to us, this reminding ourselves of past failures?
I think we're
Bringing
putting
us down.
ourselves down.
Paula, you said bringing ourselves down?
Yeah. It's not like, it's one thing, let's say you go for a job interview and you don't get the job and ask for feedback and you have a chat. That tends to be constructive, unless you have a really horrible person on the other side, but tends to be constructive so that you learn something and you focus on what you can do to overcome the failure. But if you're just reflecting on your own, you tend to put yourself down and not come up with the constructive criticism.
Do you find that, thank you, I totally agree. Do you find that it's cyclical? Like it doubles down on itself over and over and over and over again?
Yeah, definitely.
Double down. Okay, Candace or Adriana or Letitia, what do you find there's some actual outcomes of reminding ourselves of failures?
I feel like it takes away from my motivation, because it's like reliving that is kind of just like subjecting myself to like the feeling of shame again, and then I lose motivation. Like I just don't want to. And that's not always, but I feel like the majority of the time, it's just like a way to put myself down, and then I don't even want to try. Like I just would like to,
Why
yeah.
would you? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Candace or Letitia, if you have anything, you don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, I get more anxious. It's kind of like, well, I'm not going to get it done right this time either. I mean, and then it goes on.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a big buzzkill. Oh, I'm having a great day. Except,
Totes a bummer.
oh,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Not to take it in surfer lingo, but
Letitia says the little voice often eats me from the inside. Got some poetry going on in the chat. Like Candace said, it's anxiety, stress. Yeah. Over and over and over again. And I am just as confident that as 100% of us are like internally eating ourselves alive, we're all doing that, and we're all kind of trying to keep doing that over and over and over again. And like to Adriana's point, there is a point where we will come up with some apathy. And for those of you that have been through the procrastination and crisis cycle, like if it doesn't matter, if we keep trying to do a thing and it's not working, eventually we're just going to be like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. Like, what's the point? Right. So then we will stop trying, killing our motivation, stopping our forward momentum. I've always been like this. Oh, I love it when people say, you don't understand, Hannah, I'm just bad at money. I've always been bad at money. I will always be. There's nothing you can do. I'm like, that's that right there. Like I've tried everything. I'm garbage. I'm always going to be garbage. Like that. Of course, you're going to stop trying. Of course, eventually you're going to give up. We are in energy conservation mode when we get overwhelmed like that. So I hear anxiety, stress, kind of it sort of begins to eat its own tail, and a little Ouroboros of feeling nasty about ourselves, bring ourselves down, destroying motivation, kind of making it not want to. What other observations, if we're evaluating, reminding ourselves of failures as we're evaluating the system itself, not you, what other observations do you have about this unconscious, subconscious, or conscious?
it kind of colors, depending on one's mindset before you start the discussion in your head about the failure. It's kind of a catastrophizing of what it was, it's, when you start building up and getting into it, you start making it worse than it actually was. And then you start talking it over with a friend or your favorite financial coach, and oh, well, no, I guess it wasn't really that bad, but it sure does sound bad when you're talking about it to yourself. So
Yeah.
everything gets built up in a negative way. And that just compounds everything, that 5-10% more. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it makes sense to me. And I have thoughts about that and thoughts about what Letitia wrote, but I want to hear anybody else's response to Candace.
I think
or
that
Letitia.
Candace and Letitia, like reading about her frustration, it seems that one then tends to focus on some elements that are deemed negative in that failure and then thinks everything. So in that particular experience, there are good things and bad things, as in, like things that worked and things that didn't. But then one paints the whole experience or the whole whatever attempt with the same brush.
And it's all bad. Everything's bad.
Every bit of it.
The world is my world. Like me, concluding that I'm going to die if I try to make the 25-minute drive home without water. Right? That catastrophe. That but there is a reason that our brains do that. And that is not malfunction, right? Like that sort of scarcity mindset is tightly attached to our survival, right? That, I mean, there's a reason we do that, like, because then Hannah gets to drink water, right? I mean, that's important. And if our brains like that, that old part of our brain that is in fight or flight, fight, flight, or freeze, there's a reason that we do that. There's a reason that we're making a mountain out of molehills. And we can always look at it after the fact and go, oh, why do I do that? Which is reminding ourselves of past failures, right? So it's okay to give ourselves a little bit of grace. That I hear Letitia here in chat saying, she says, feeling like I've done everything by the book and the results don't match. So I've done what I should do. And it doesn't matter what I do, right? And I get frustrated. Oh, yes. Is it okay if I expound a little bit? This is the discussion part, so I want to be honoring that, but I also really, really want to share something right now. Is that okay with everybody?
And by me.
Okay. So there's a cognitive shortcut that we take called effective forecasting. It's effective with an A. And this is not my invention. I welcome you to Google this. When I'm teaching other coaches, other professionals, when I'm teaching them to look and listen for this, we are looking and listening for, I just need to, I just want to, if I could just someday when all of those things, which can sound like goal setting, but it's actually a dirty, dirty lie. So what happens is our brains it's really hard to think about the future, right? It's really hard because there's so many moving parts, there's so many variables. Our brains are really good about thinking about the past, really good about thinking about the right now, and really terrible about thinking about the future. So our brains take this shortcut. Effective forecasting is essentially the shortcut that our brains take to predict a future mental state, specifically happiness, okayness, safety. So we grab these things. I just need to have this drink of water. I just need to make it through the week. I just need to get this raise. I just need to buy the house. We just need to have this baby. I just need to get married. Just need to find a man. Sorry, gross. I just want to, if I could just, right? And so what happens is that we have been told, again, by marketing and everything around us, that these are the things that we should be accomplishing. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be buying cars and houses and getting raises. What I am saying is that we shouldn't be attaching our happiness to that. So that I just need to blank. What we never do is we never fill in the sentence. We never say, like Hannah standing in that convenience store, sweaty and gross, did not say to herself, I just need this bottle of water and then the rest of my life is going to be perfect, right? But that's the lie that it's telling us. So that when we meet a couple of those accomplishments, we get the job, we have the kids, we buy the house, and we're not happy. Like Letitia says, I've done everything I should do, right? And I'm not happy. The only natural logical conclusion is there's something wrong with me. What am I doing wrong? I did everything I was supposed to do. I'm not safe. I'm not happy. I'm not okay. What's wrong with me? And we are right back to our buddy failure at that point, right? We're going to go pick apart every choice we made in the past when maybe it was that effective forecasting. Maybe it was that in our brains, that little lie that poisoned the well for us. So I want to pause real quick. We've covered, it's already been 35 minutes. We've covered what we want out of talking about reminding ourselves of failure, what it's actually doing. And then I've inserted some effective forecasting. So I want to pause and I want to make sure real quickly, like what do you need clarification on? It kind of might feel like some disparate parts here. We're going to start knitting those together in a minute, but what do you guys need clarification on?
Nothing from me. I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm up to speed.
Yes, you are. What, as we've been talking so far, what has been your biggest surprise?
The idea of looking at shame and that whole system from an out of, well, I visualize it as an out of body experience.
That's
And I don't mean that in the psychology way, psychiatric way when you're totally under stress. I mean in terms of stepping outside the system and saying, what does this look like? What does this look like? That's good. I like that. It's
Me
like
too. The
dissociating from it. Yeah.
I hesitate to use
without all
use
the-
the word dissociating for its negative, but like maybe distance or perspective.
Distancing. That's a good word. I like it. Perspective. Yes, that's a good one.
What other surprises have you guys? Letitia says being called on evaluating myself within a broken system. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I can relate to that. Perhaps it's like what is this big surprise for me is the fact that we all feel failure. And
Yeah.
obviously it's not, how is it possible that we've all failed? Like Letitia's been doing everything by the book. I've done nothing by the book, and still we're both feeling failure. And like, so it means that 100% of the planet seemingly feels failure.
Mhm.
Yep. And we all of us, every single one of us, think that we're the only ones going through this, which is very isolating. What
Can
do
I
you
ask one
want?
more-
Dawn? Yeah.
Can I ask one more thing?
Do
If
whatever you
we're
want.
all 100% of, if 100% of us are feeling failure and shame and all that, didn't you just say that there's a evolutionary, or insert scientific term here, there's a reason why we have that? And apparently in my notes I didn't get that down, but basically it was for the change making tool and avoiding the repeating of it, right?
The reason our brains naturally are inclined to this is survival, right? But
Okay.
but our way too smart, but like beta testing cognitive functions aren't super good at translating this out. And like Letitia and Paula were saying, like evaluating the system I'm using, not myself. Like we tend to internalize that. And because there's shame around feeling shame, like feeling less than, I'm not going to share that with my tribe, because if they know that I'm weak, I might be out of the tribe, and you don't want to be out of the tribe. Like that's, again, we're back to survival again. So it's the back part, like the old parts of our brains trying desperately to keep us alive. And the new parts of our brains that are super kind of not always great at their jobs, like trying to like make sense, make out of that, meaning make, and find a system within that. And it's going to be a hot mess, and it always is. And so there's societal reasons that we don't share this kind of things with each other, but we are all going through this. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you for
I'm sure there's
that.
dozens of books out there from psychologists that are
armchair psychologists such as myself.
that I just take what I need from their research, and then I tool it, make it like into a little tool, and then I give it to you. Adriana, did you have any observations?
I mean, I can't remember if I was talking to you or my therapist about like how like shame is contagious, it's, and but just, I mean, I feel like I've known for, and probably through discussions like this and going to therapy and all the things, that everyone experiences shame in some way. And yeah, so like, I mean, and I'm also aware of, like the system and the setup of like the world that we live in. But it is, it's something that as I go through every day, I forget that I'm like living and functioning in this broken system. So yeah, so when I read that, especially, I was like, yeah, that is probably the one. It feels like a surprise, you know,
Every single
it feels,
day.
it feels like an aha moment every time I realize that that's what's happening. Because I do get so, you know, I'm just like going through the motions and, you know, having these thoughts or these feelings. And then it's like, oh yeah, but the world isn't set up, you know, to be like a healthy, supportive kind of, yeah, cushion for this. So, yeah.
And that's, I think that's on us as well. Like all of us here, and one of you I know is set up perfectly to do this kind of work. Everybody else is too, but is that once you have this kind of tool and this realization and these, it's sort of on us. It's the impetus is ours to share that, to battle back against the worldwide messaging that we're not enough. And I think that we as powerful women, we can, I love that there's almost never men on these things. I love that we have the tools to at least be empathetic of each other. Like if the next time you're standing in a grocery store and you look around and like seriously take a moment to do a practice of the empathy of like everybody else is also doubting everything that they're doing too, right? Everybody else, I don't care what car they drive, I don't care what they look like. Everybody is moving through the world with that kind of shame, self-doubt, and failure as well. But I don't want to make it sound like it's not possible to come out of that, because it absolutely is. But let's say 95% of people, let's be really generous. Like, I don't care. I don't care if they just got their nails done. I don't care if they're driving a splashy little car. I don't care. Everybody is moving through the world with this kind of, with way fewer tools than you have too. So yeah, I think that this is an opportunity for empathy and for sharing this kind of work. So any other, I want to pause for a break here in a moment, and then we'll come back and we'll start with skill sharing. But before we do that, I really want to make sure that if anybody has any pushback, any observations, anything that's going around and around and around and around, that we call that out right now. This won't be your only opportunity, but. Okay. So let's take a break. When you come back, I would like you to share a brief story about what your life would look like if you didn't have this system of reminding yourself of your past
You
failures.
froze.
If I did, am I frozen? Blah, blah, blah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No,
Okay.
everything
There you are.
fine from this side.
Okay. Maybe I just, okay. What was the last intelligent thing you heard me say?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, I don't know if we're going to count that as
No,
intelligent, but okay. Okay. So when do we come? Let's take about a 4-minute break. And when I come back, I'd like you to tell a story about what your life will look like if we disconnected that little thing in your head that reminds you of your past failures. Let's take about 4 minutes, come back at 48.
Yeah, thank you. I
Hi.
always feel so fortunate to be a part of these.
Oh, I
So
feel so
much
fortunate
deep
to have you
stuff.
as a part of these.
So much deep stuff. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna finish making that story. Just a sec.
Okay.
I've got the mechanics of it.
Well, good.
Well,
Oh,
I
dear.
think I do.
Adriana's back.
I'm here, but I'm not sure you'll want to see me lounging in the bed.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Get you, Paula. So I'll go first. What my life would look like if I could disconnect that little voice that reminds me of my past failures is that I would be able to make better choices quicker, and have the confidence to do that. I think that's pretty general, but I don't know. You guys can be as specific or general as you like, but who wants to go next? Go, Adriana.
I guess like my thoughts were that like in those moments where, you know, things are kind of like piling up or it feels a little like overwhelming or chaotic, when I take a moment to like step away or breathe or go on a walk, you know, usually it's like I'm trying to kind of give myself a little reboot and a break. And that's when that thinking kicks in. And so I'm less motivated when I come back instead of like refreshed and like ready to take things on. So I was just thinking it would be like those breaks would be more successful and I would get that kind of like you know, that motivation or that like excitement to tackle the rest of the day. So yeah, things would be more smooth. Then like kind of like you said, like things would happen a little faster, you know, because I feel like when I'm not motivated, like I'm inching through, like I'm like creeping through my tasks versus being excited about, you know, my work and getting it done. So yeah, things would just run more smoothly, not feel as chaotic. And yeah, and I would just generally, you know, be a little more optimistic about getting through my day.
Wonderful. That was a cool pattern you noticed during a break, is when that little voice starts to like chime in on things. Ooh, that was, you don't want to stop taking walks, but that's very cool.
I mean, sometimes they're successful. I feel like 3 out of 5 are, you know, maybe successful nowadays. Before it was like
Right.
1, but
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome improvement. Thank you for that. I'm
So,
not going to require anybody to be vulnerable, but go ahead, Candace.
you know me, I've always got something to say. So, and that's not a bad thing, but you know, but anyway, so taking breaks and reclaiming one's perspective for me, since I do a lot of tunnel visioning because of my plus or minus gift of ADHD, it lets me redirect and say, okay, this is where I want to focus. Not, oh, I should have been, but, oh, this is where I need to put some attention. Or, oh, that's what I was thinking of this morning. Oh, and that would not be, like Adriana was saying, that would not be as possible if I were letting those in-between moments, that potential moment for regaining my momentum and my motivation, to come back. I see the removing the shame and removing the failure aspect, the negative of the failure, as replacing the fuse or maybe bypassing the fuse. And, you know, I get all mechanical with these things, but splicing past the electrical short where you've got two wires that aren't meeting up. If you splice them and you get it past that short, you know, where the glitch is, where that shame comes in. That's exactly what I needed.
I like that.
Yeah.
Good analog.
So yeah, reclaiming perspective and taking breaks.
And Letitia
I'm
says,
just
if I
reading it.
disconnect from past failures, lack of self-worth, making myself small, may not become as big an issue as it has become, especially in my career. On a personal level, I didn't realize I was making myself feel ashamed due to scarcity mindset that I grew up with, culture and education. Yeah. That mindset, that pretty much lots of honor societies, which I think probably every single one of us grew up in one form of an honor society or not another, that seems to just come right along with it. I don't know why. You're either doing the right thing or there's something terribly wrong with you, right? You don't have to be a Catholic to have that built into your brain. Yes, thank you for that, Letitia. Yep. Anybody else have anything? Oh, here comes Paula.
I'm here. Like,
yes.
I think, you know, it, in a way, it's what you all have said. It's baggage. It's something that slows you down. And if I didn't have that, that putting myself down, that shame and so on, whether in my professional or personal life, gosh, I would have achieved in whatever, you know, it's like anything I wanted. Yeah. In work, personal life, you know, I don't know what the achievement specifically is, but I would have got whatever I wanted, not in a bad, greedy way, but I would have set myself goals and I would have achieved them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. This is touching on something, a concept that I am maybe calling, I'm not sure, the idea of something called a sacred foe. So we all have these enemies. Tonight, we're talking specifically about failure, or in particular, reminding ourselves of failure. But we continue to keep these guys around, right? Like there's a purpose, and we'll talk a little bit more as we go a little further into this, but like sometimes it's impossible to even imagine a world where we don't have this thing, right? This part of our brains that are reminding us of past failures. And that's understanding that there is hope in that. Like, even though we talked earlier, like the great majority of people have this, it's also possible to not have it. So I'm so grateful for your stories that it's possible to move through the world with this little piece disconnected. But I think our instinct with any time that we have an enemy like this or an obstacle like this is to fight. And I'm going to push back on the fight, because these suckers, everything, any obstacle that you have in your way, shame, failure, procrastination, crisis, overwhelm, apathy, anxiety, everything, they like it when we fight them. They like it a lot. Candace?
There's I don't know how many people like Rage Against the Machine, but there's a line in one of their songs that says, "Your anger is a gift." And I know I've spoken of this before, but my point here is that, and I've worked it out in therapy, at least for myself, that anger, or insert negative seeming emotion here, is seen as, oh, that's a bad thing, you shouldn't get angry. No, I see it differently. It is an emotion. It is a thing that how you use it can be the determinant about how good or bad it is, or whether you need to have shame about it, or whether you can use it to lead you to enact your passion. Okay. Small example. If you're angry about racial injustice or environmental injustice, or insert cause here, your anger for that can lead you to understand, well, what is my real passion here? I don't want to see the oceans polluted with plastics, or insert cause here. So what am I going to do about it? Your anger is a gift.
Yeah.
Calling for action. Well, maybe shame is also potentially a gift. We just have to dig out and root out what it is. And I see those eyebrows. I love it. Okay.
Spoilers.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to fear, because I work this out in therapy too, for my own answers, of course. But fear is actually asking to be a motivator.
Yep.
And that's only my answer. Y'all work it out how you want it. Maybe your answer is totally different, but that's what I see.
That's what I see too, is that we can use these quote unquote negative as indicators of something else. Mm-hmm. Of like noticing, and this will become, I'll dig into this here in a moment. Yeah, but we're not fighting with it, even though that's the instinct, is to go to battle with these. Like, today's the day, I'm gonna kill my procrastination forever. Oh, good luck, sucker. Because the procrastination, I'm picking on that, loves it when we try to do that. I'm like, today is the day I stop talking shit about myself. Oh, nope. Because it's in the background going like, come on, please. You've tried this so many times. Today is not the day, friend. So coming at it head on never works. What are the kind of strategy we're going to talk about? And strategy is a very, let's say the loosely fit together scaffolding is designed to undermine things and to understand that this particular enemy, failure, and all of the other ones, self-limiting beliefs, very closely related there, obligation, procrastination, overwhelm, all of those things are trying desperately to serve a purpose. And until that purpose is solved, they're going to keep trying to do their jobs. So any other thoughts or feedback before we move on? I kind of want to get going on kind of the prerequisite to the tool itself, which we still haven't got to. Okay.
Letitia had a thought there.
Oh, thank you. And I see Adriana's mouth moving, but you're muted. I don't know if
I was reading the comment.
Okay.
Letitia.
Letitia says, love what Candace. What? I'm sorry, Paula, what was that?
I was just saying that Letitia has just written something.
Thank you. If shame and scarcity mindset drags us down, is abundance mindset the answer for moving forward without the baggage? Is it that simple? Yeah, no, right? Yes and no. If it was that simple, we would have all conquered this. And abundance mindset, positive affirmations, and that kind of a thing are bandied about quite a bit, and I think are important, but I don't think they're enough. Just like I don't think self-care is enough. Important, not enough. So yeah, that's, if just being aware of it and trying to like reframe everything worked, we'd be okay. And we're clearly not. So thank you. Good observations. Adriana's laughing about something.
I just love that we would be okay and we're clearly not.
We're clearly not okay. Sorry.
But we're getting there. We're getting there, ladies.
I didn't mean we as in the five of us. I meant we as in the look at the planet, guys. I mean, we're
Yeah.
clearly
No,
not
I
okay.
totally got that, but I love that. Just adored it.
Sorry, that's going on a t-shirt. Okay, so I'm gonna drop in some slides. I'm gonna share with you the prerequisite to the tool. So this isn't even the tool yet, but you need this first. So, and please shout if you need anything, because I have a hard time seeing you and the slides. So this prerequisite is part of a lot of my work. So I will teach this prerequisite for literally everything. Right here, you see it's for the modified zero-based budget prerequisite, because this is part of a lot of their training. But this thing, this mindset, this concept, this practice, whatever you want to call it, this is critical to every movement forward. So we're going to practice something called naturalistic observation, which I think we probably all kind of know about. If you think about a scientist out in the nature, in the dirt, in the bug bites, observing a wild animal, that I think we're all pretty familiar with what that kind of looks like. And they do these things because lab studies are difficult or not important or can't be done. So what we're trying to do as the scientist is observe animals in their natural environment. So what I want you to do is I would like you to practice being both the wild animal and the scientist. So you're going to be kind of approaching, looking at your, reminding yourself of failure, or really anything that you want, from both of these perspectives simultaneously. So this takes some practice. We're going to go through it, but you might not master it tonight. But usually people are better at this than they think they are. Go back. All right, so let's say the scientist is observing the wild animal. Would the scientist try to change the wild animal's behavior?
No.
No. What would the scientist do?
Record what she sees.
Observe and take notes, right? Let's say that the scientist notices that the wild animal has changed its own behavior. Is the scientist going to try to change the wild animal's behavior back again?
No.
Nope.
But the
What's the
scientist
scientist going to?
might decide, wait, I'm going to note that, and later I'll study this and see if they change their behavior because of something I did.
Precisely, right? That's pattern recognition, right? What came before, what happens after. So yes, if the scientist changes its own, but I'm sorry, also if the scientist changes its own behavior, if the animal changes its own behavior, the scientist is not going to try to change it back again. Let's say that the scientist observes the animal eat something disgusting. Would the scientist in her notebook write down, oh my God, this is the most disgusting animal I have ever seen. How stupid this thing is, dumb, ugly, and horrible. That animal ate a whole pile of elephant poop. Is that what the scientist would write down in their notebook?
Not likely, but maybe on a bad day.
A real bad day. Not enough caffeine or way too much?
No, definitely. Yeah.
Not if they're a good scientist. What would the scientist
on
write
the-
down in the
On
notebook?
the third day, she might note that he only ate half the pile because he didn't see me react badly.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Paolo, what were you saying?
it's just an object, like the scientist, and I have to say that I've been not the scientist observing nature, but I've worked as an anthropologist. I've
Uh-huh.
a PhD that is really anthropologically based. So yes, you can't project your own values onto what you observe. So you can't, like the disgust you might feel for the monkeys eating the poo.
Right.
It's your own, it's not the monkeys.
Precisely. Yeah. Yeah. So the scientist would likely write something more like monkey ate elephant poop, right? Or like something measurable and quantifiable, right? So as Paula said, scientists is not there to judge, not to impose their own values and judgments. So the scientist's job is to observe and take notes, and that's it, right? Let's say the scientist observes that the scientist's very presence is agitating, disrupting, or changing the animal's behavior. What would the scientist do?
Back away.
Back away. And also probably take notes, right?
Remove themselves.
Yeah, try and find a way to observe without being disruptive.
Yep. And if they can't, then we stop. And this is something that is really, really critical. Anytime I'm encouraging somebody to begin the process of observing themselves, their behavior without judgment, I not only don't want them to change their behavior intentionally, but if it gets worse, like, remember I told you about the young lady who domestic violence was observing her own shame. She stopped after just a day because it got worse and worse and worse. Instead of like it hurting a little bit and then fading, hurting a little bit and then fading, it just made everything worse. The shame built on the shame, built on the shame. Without my permission, and this is, we designed this way, she's just stopped the practice on her own. So if you are observing your own behavior and you notice that just the fact that you're observing it makes things worse, stop observing. And the rule is stop observing and then email me immediately that minute. So if that happens at 3 o'clock in the morning, please email me. And I've sent people out in the world beginning to track something, their spending, shame, whatever it is. And I've gotten an email 45 minutes that I had to stop. I'm like, cool, right? Because we don't want to be making anything worse. So just observing these enemies of ours, the shame, the judgment, the failure, is sometimes enough to like have them fight back against us. So we want to observe, but we don't want to make things worse. So I'll make that super clear.
Mm-hmm.
Observing our behaviors is objective, non-judgmental, non-emotional. We are looking for patterns. That's the next step. So once, like Candace said, once the scientist has been observing just cold observations for a while, they begin to notice and look for patterns, right? And we do that with ourselves. Adriana noticed a fantastic pattern. Did anybody remember what that was? She takes herself out on a walk, gets some fresh air, and then her brain starts
Ruminating.
Yep. That's a fantastic pattern to notice. With those patterns, we can recognize, we can predict future reactions and behaviors. And then we begin experimenting. The scientist and wild animal analogy is something we need to leave behind at this point. This would be like the scientist goes back to the lab and begins an experiment, right, with the data that they collected in the field. Those experiments, or interventions, or whatever you want to call them, we are going to be evaluating the experiment, the intervention, the strategy, and not ourselves. And we're back to this sort of little theme that's been building up, is that we are evaluating the strategy, not our own behavior. We're saying what worked and what didn't work, right? So that is how we build systems for ourselves that won't work for anybody else probably. So, okay, so this is, nope, no, I don't want to go to tracking, forget it.
What was that fifth one? After begin experimenting and then what?
Evaluate interventions and strategies, not yourself.
Thank you.
What is my problem with Zoom today? Stop it. Okay, so that is the prerequisite to the tool. So it's the tool before the tool. It's the appetizer. What observations do you guys have about observing yourself without judgment?
Unconditional
May
positive
not
regard
be
comes to
easy.
mind.
Sorry.
Let's start with Paula, since I heard her voice first.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I said it may not be easy because, of course, we are burdened with our own judgment.
Always through that filter. Yeah. Candace?
Unconditional positive regard is certainly difficult at the start.
Mhm.
But,
Whether we're applying that to ourselves or to the people that we serve. Yeah.
yes.
Yep. Candace is using a terminology that comes from like the deeper level of my coaching, which is where I coach other coaches, coach people. So unconditional positive regard is a practice that's used in counseling and therapy. Essentially that we are going to unconditionally positively regard everybody in our world. It allows for a lot of grace, and it basically accepts people right where they are in that moment, which is kind of, I think, what we're wanting to do for ourselves.
That
So,
was my
any
next
other-
statement. That was my reason for bringing it up, is we have to do that for ourselves.
Yeah. In fact, we need to do that for ourselves first. It's difficult to apply unconditional positive regard to others without doing that for ourselves. Letitia says, good tool to be objective and not judgmental when evaluating myself in situations. If anybody's ever started a mindfulness or meditation practice, one of the things that they teach you is that as you begin to try to either focus on a mantra or not focus on anything, our brains go, and they go out there and think about something and they go, come back, right? It's not like, oh my God, why am I so bad at this? They teach you like your brain is going to go think about random stuff, right? Like that it's expected that our brains are going to go all wonky, and then we just gently corral them back again. And this is the observation without judgment, follows that same kind of, it's hard at first, but then it gets easier as we practice and practice and practice. So I teased a little bit earlier, talking about this idea of this sacred foe, this enemy that we keep around us at all times, because we're trying to get something out of it, or more accurately, and thinking about specifically to our conversation, thinking about the constant reminding ourselves of failure, or frequent reminding ourselves of failure. What we said we wanted out of it was we want to do better. We want to not hurt the same people. We want to be reflective on our behavior. We want it to be a change tool. We don't want to relive the same things. And because that's what, if you kind of think about it, okay, clear your minds. Think about a little monster guy, little monster, a little demon, a little guy. Okay, what color is your little guy? Mine is green.
Orange.
Orange, okay, good. So this little guy, who else wants to say the name, the color, or I guess we're naming now because I said it. Mine's named Dave. What's yours? Mine is green and his name is Dave.
I see him on the Mucinex commercials.
Oh, the Mucinex commercial guy. Oh yeah, yeah, perfect. What else? Who else has a visualization of their little failure monster?
I can only think of my husband. Hopefully soon to be ex.
Oh, well, there's that. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
We'll raise a
Okay.
toast when it happens. How about that?
It's telling.
That's what comes to your mind. That's what it is.
Yes.
Paula. All right. So Paula's got her soon to be ex-husband. Adriana, is it your favorite color, orange?
That is my favorite color, but now I have the like phlegm ball, like that Candace was picturing, the
Beautiful.
Mucinex snot ball. Now I have that in
Okay.
my head.
Sorry.
It's okay. I don't know
Hey,
what's
we're
better,
on
the
the same
Mucinex
page
snot ball
now.
or the ex-husband. Okay. All right. So you've got a picture of your little demon guy. right? And that little monster is sitting on your shoulders and beating you over the head with this. And it's trying so hard. It's trying desperately to do its job. And its job is not to make you feel like crap. Its job is not to make it so you can't function. Its job is to help you make better choices, to not repeat the same mistakes again, to move forward, to do better. That's what its actual job is. And it's not going to stop doing this until that's satisfied, right? So it's just really bad at its job, right? It's stated, what it said on its CV that it's doing is not what the actual outcome. The actual outcome is that where it kills our motivation, gets us feeling stuck and overwhelmed, right? It doesn't care about that stuff. It's just trying really hard to help us do better and be better, right? So let me pull up I'm going to email this to everybody as well. Zoom and I have not been getting along super great today, so thank you for your charity here. So this practice of examining that foe, and again, we are going to be evaluating and examining the foe, the enemy, not you. This could be applied to any self-limiting belief. Today, we're talking a lot about failure, but this could be like specifically self-limiting beliefs. Okay, let's use an example as we run through this. The example is a client that I'm working with who's considering leaving a 6-figure a year job to be an entrepreneur, right? And he's experiencing a bunch, overwhelming, how dare you? This should not ever be like, why would you think that you could do this? You're stupid to leave this job. All of these kinds of things. Think about, remember that one time in college when you tried to do the house painting business with your buddy and you failed at that? All of that, all the time. So the first thing that we do in this practice is, without shame or judgment, using that tool, I'm going to listen for the actual language that foe, the enemy, is using. So in his instance, the actual language, the words that the bad guy, the little beast, is using is, how dare you? What makes you think that you could? Don't you remember the last time? The exact language. The language is important. And by listening for, because as I think Paula pointed out early, this is a fast, almost subconscious, almost unconscious conversation that we have with ourselves. It's fast and it's quiet. So by listening for it specifically, and again, listening without judgment, we slow it down, we make it louder. We're not battling with anything, we're only listening for it. So what common, quiet, quick phrases or words do you hear frequently? Step number 1. Step number 2, what is this little beast trying to protect you from, right? Remember I said that this guy is trying to do a job. What is its purpose? If reminding myself about past failures is trying to prevent me from failure, we've got a problem, right? That's the cyclical thing. Go ahead, somebody was about to say something.
I was chuckling.
Okay. So we've talked about the purpose of the enemy, the foe, whatever we want to call it, the little beast, but it is absolutely trying to protect you. And that's why it won't stop until it does that.
Sorry.
What, Candace? Okay. So we're going to diagnose and we've talked about this too. What are the actual outcomes, right? It's not what it's trying to do, not what it says on not what the sales pitch came across as. What are the actual outcomes? And for us, I heard kind of doubling down on the failure language, killing motivation, make us anxious, that kind of a thing. Regardless of what it's trying to accomplish, what is your foe doing to you? And this is the thing we haven't quite talked about yet, but let's talk about our friend who's considering leaving that high-paying job that he hates, and that's slowly killing him and becoming an entrepreneur. What are some other ways that this guy could protect himself without the negative effects? What do you guys think?
you can find some strategies that actually, how can I say, you can hedges bets.
Mhm.
So, for example, if the fear is to lose financially, it might find a solution that covers, like, or ensures its financial security without having to give up the entrepreneurial thing.
Yep. Yep, he could make sure that he's got a good nest egg laid in. He could make sure that his expenses are low. He could mitigate risk, is a lot of what
Mhm.
Paula's talking about. Yep. What other
I'm
ways
thinking
can
of,
ahead.
I'm thinking of different ideas or like things that, like, I always default to like options inventory because I like to get silly with that, and then it kind of eases me out of a freak out, you know, because it can be really silly. And it's always just like in my head. Sometimes I do actually, I guess maybe twice have I ever made like a physical list
Uh-huh.
outside of doing it with you.
Mhm.
But yeah, like, you know, just kind of like a kind of a break the ice, like break it down into something silly, or the smaller visualization tools.
Mhm. Yeah, all good. Real quickly, what Audrey was talking about with an option inventory is a pretty potent tool. I love the idea that you move through the world doing option inventories. It is a way of kind of making sure that we are allowing ourselves a ton of choice. Even if the choices are dumb or bad or silly. So like our friend here who is considering leaving his job, we would maybe spend some time going through an option inventory. And like he would like, well, I could, you know, make sure I have some money set aside. I could get a coach beforehand. I could make sure that I'm studying a bunch. And then I would ask something like, what's the silliest thing that you could do? And the silliness usually stops everything cold. Well, the silliest thing that I could do would be, I don't know, get a bunch of tattoos instead of working on this, or right. And that focusing on something silly, that sort of oblique angle tends to sort of shake things up a little bit, which is kind of the point. So getting a little ridiculous with it is not going to hurt anybody. The one problem with option inventories is that for some of us, the option inventory immediately translates into a gigantic to-do list. And that's another reason to keep it silly and oblique, and to stop if it becomes an obligation inventory. So this is the basic of it. I'm going to send you this worksheet. We're almost at time. What I didn't have, because I wanted to keep this as a one pager, is that then you get to evaluate. You're going to evaluate the system, right? What's working and what's not working. You get to put everything back through that observation tool again, the observation without judgment, and over and over and over again, we're evaluating the system. So if I come up with another way of, let's go back to the reminding ourselves of failure. Let's do this real quickly with reminding ourselves of failure. So without shame or judgment, listen for the actual language that the reminding myself of my failures. What common, quick, quiet phrases do I hear? I personally hear, I can't believe that I fill in the blank. What do you guys hear?
Whatever made you think that would work?
How dare you?
Why did you choose to do that?
What's wrong with you? What other indicators are you guys? And I'm using this language very intentionally. I'm saying indicator. What other
Have you earned
indicators?
that? Have you earned that, or
Ooh.
do you deserve that?
Oh, got some
Ooh.
punishment rewards going on. Paula, were you saying something?
Yes, I was thinking, why didn't you think of the long term rather than the immediate?
Why didn't you? I can't see chat. Maybe I can. Oh, Letitia says, you knew what you were getting into. You knew what you were getting yourself into. You knew I was a scorpion when you picked me up. Yeah, lots of good
I
language.
like that
So,
Letitia and I are opposites. Like she's has everything planned, and then she thinks she fails. I nothing planned, and like
Mhm.
she thinks she knew what she was getting into. Instead, I think, oh gosh, I never knew what I was getting into.
Either way, and that's a really cool observation. Either way, this is reinforcing that we can't be trusted, right?
Mhm.
Over and over and over again. And as I've said a million times, maybe not today to everybody on these calls, but there's no difference between being able to trust ourselves and resilience. So if you can't trust yourself, you won't be resilient. All right, so good indicators. All right, so what is my reminding myself of my past failures? What is that trying to protect me from? For me, it's ironically trying to protect me from failure. What is
Mhm.
your bad guy protecting you from? Trying to.
Embarrassment.
Putting you in dangerous inverted commas situations, like for example, if you stand out, and that can have a negative effect, or things of that type.
Yeah. Beautiful. Candace?
Embarrassment and judgment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Anything
social
else that you're
consequences.
social consequences? Adriana, what were you saying?
Disappointment or embarrassment. Yeah.
Okay. I'm leaving
It
a
can
minute
be
because I
even
want to.
physical consequences, because like thinking of your client who was physically abused. Yeah.
Yep. That's pretty hard to argue against, isn't it? No, keep your head down. Letitia says same as Adriana, so embarrassment, that kind of thing. Good. Okay. What are the actual outcomes of our little buddy's work? I feel like garbage. I have anxiety and depression. So if I go through enough of these, the depression is back there cracking its knuckles, ready to go. Like, all right, let's sleep for a month.
I chuckle only because I knew that symptom.
Yep. It's always there. What other actual outcomes from this little bad guy?
Inaction.
Inaction.
I mean, you said earlier today that you were in the US Coast Guard, and as a sailor, I think that a bad decision is better than no decision.
That's that action bias coming in. Yep.
Yeah. So
yeah,
for me, inaction is a negative that comes from this.
Yeah, I like that. Inaction, shutdown, apathy, getting overwhelmed and getting stuck. All of those things are related to that. Yeah. Adriana or Letitia?
I think that, I mean, yeah, I kind of agree with yeah, trapped or stuck feeling. So I can relate to.
Good. Letitia says unmotivated. Yep. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And again, this is kind of apathy, right? If it doesn't matter what I do, if I do the right things and I'm still a failure, why would I keep trying? Right? There's a kind of messed up logic to this. And it's important to, like, we're just going to stop trying. We're going to go to ground. We're going to shut down. We're going to stop. We're just going to freeze. So if the purpose of my little monster guy is to protect me from failure, but the outcome is that I shut down, what are some other ways that I can still protect myself from failure?
try different ways of doing things.
Mhm. Yeah. Experimentation, love that. And what Paula just said is absolutely critical. It's the whole thing. Because then once we try that thing, let's keep it in the scientific language, we run a trial. What are we evaluating? Are we evaluating the trial or evaluating how much I suck at it?
Mhm.
We're evaluating the trial. Oh, that didn't work. Let's move on and find something that does.
And taking that scientist approach too, or just trying to like practice that so that when we do go into something, we're using that non-judgmental scientist approach, and that distance perspective instead of, like, being like a negative coach through the whole experience. Yeah, so just, I guess, practicing that kind of new mindset so that when
And
we
it
do,
does,
yeah.
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, just when we do go into that situation that we have our thinking kind of shifted.
Precisely. And this does absolutely take practice. Abundance mindset. Oh, you got your clarity on abundance mindset, Tisha. Okay. I'm glad we circled back around to that one way or the other. So we're over time and I have unlimited, well, until the dog. So I have dog related time because my entire life moves at daisy speed. I'm going to drop out of this. I will be sending that to you along with this recording. What I'd love for you guys to do is to fill out an exit slip. The exit slips are crazy, crazy, crazy important to me developing these future discussions. And I would love, don't do that. Exit slip first. So I have 3 potential ideas. Hi, Frappa. I have 3 potential ideas for next month's discussion, but I would also like to hear topics that might have come out of tonight's discussion that you want to hear about next time. So I've been thinking about control, obligation, which is really closely related to both accountability and failure, and productivity. So do you guys have any thoughts about what we want to talk about next month?
Control.
Okay, we got 1 vote for control.
That would be a great topic. It's always a great topic.
Oh, I see that the
That's-
cat has control right now.
The cat, absolutely. Frappa has
She said
control.
it is 7:35.
It's time for some snugs right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a lot of time that we can spend chatting. Before you go, if you need to go, what is something that you feel like you can take away from tonight and immediately begin using, if anything?
I think the observation,
Definitely sorry. Yeah, go, Adriana.
just that scientist observation tool.
Totally the same, yes.
So,
And same for Letitia.
Letitia, yeah.
and I think while I am, because I never do just one thing at a time, please don't think I'm multitasking effectively. Anyway, while I am observing, I will also be thinking about how to splice past the electrical short.
Okay. The other way.
Yes. Yes, because I need to consider how to move past that. It's just what I need to do. But yes, I need to, I do best in, I will be observing, but I'm also constructing the visual for splicing out the unhealthy parts.
Can I provide some feedback that may not be
Absolutely. It looks like you have feedback. Please go right ahead.
both for you and Letitia, and I think Adriana caught it too. Did you catch it?
Obligation.
The
Well,
obligation language built into what you're saying.
yeah,
The
the stopping-
obligation built the language built into talking about stopping with the obligation language. And
Oh,
Letitia says it too, stopping myself when I observe myself being judgmental. There it is.
Mhm.
It's right there. It's always there, right? And that's why I don't want you to fight it, right? That's why we're sticking with observation and not battling this. So stopping myself when I observe myself being judgmental is changing my behavior. And so that's why I understand, like, this is difficult, like, because this is deeply knitted into our lives, like all the way down into our DNA, right? Is that what you were, I saw your aha face, Adriana. Is that what you were observing?
Yeah, just the, because as soon as we try to, stop ourselves, or I guess for me, because I mean, when I was trying to observe in the first week, I would stop myself and say, oh, that's not good. Like wagging my finger at myself. And I wasn't just observing. And so I just kind of flashed back when I read that, stopping myself when I observed being judgmental, because it's like, okay, we just have to say, oh, okay, notice it
there it
and
is.
say, oh, okay, noted. I saw that. Okay, continue. And then go about, the day. And then, of course you can reflect on it at the end of the day. You can kind of think, okay, that happened like 3 times today. And, so just to become a little more aware of it, but it is hard to just observe.
Mhm.
It's really, for me, it was really hard to just observe.
Yeah, full disclosure, Adriana has gone through my 40-hour masterclass. So Adriana is trained as a coach using the tools that I use. So that's what I was throwing to her, because I think that is a really critical thing. You need to think and reflect, as Letitia says. Yeah, I am asking you to do something that is unnatural, right? This is a weird thing. And as Adriana says, it's hard, right? Observing yourself without judgment, truly observing yourself without judgment, it gets like, it can be layers and layers and layers deep. So it's this, give yourself some grace with this, right? This, usually people master this observation without judgment pretty quicker than you think. Like all of a sudden you're just observing, oh, there it is. Like you're just watching it go by. Oh, I'm telling myself that I'm garbage. Right? Oh, there it goes. It's the same exact sort of flexible mindset that we use with the beginnings of that mindfulness or meditation practice, where your brain's going to go blipping off and doing other things, and you're going to gently bring it back in again. There it goes. Hello, come back here, come back here. And then it goes off again, come back. So that gentleness, that grace, that the technical term is unconditional positive regard, that even if we are still shaming ourselves and shaming ourselves for shaming ourselves, we can observe that itself without shame. This has gone meta. Yeah, so no fight, observation. This is harder than it might seem, but it's possible, right? It's very, very, very possible. What other observations? Anything that's coming up over and over and over again in your head? Lots of thinking face going on. Oh, I should. Letitia, that is a fantastic indicator. Use that. Listen for that language. Brilliant.
Yeah, I think that earning or deserve, those words, when those come up, when I'm talking to myself, especially, are good.
Paola and Letitia, we had the discussion earlier today about accountability, which Candace was at last month, and Adriana and I've talked about quite a bit. That spectrum, that consent spectrum, like when we talk about like earning or the rewards and punishment, that still counts as non-consensual, right? That's still pressure. I believe that's pressure. It's either pressure or compliance, where that punishment and reward, that kind of self-manipulation, doesn't matter if we're doing it to ourselves. It's still detrimental. It's still damaging. It still removes our autonomy. So thank you for that, Adriana. I'm feeling lots of big thoughts happening. I want to know, give me your big thoughts.
I had a thought. It ran away.
Okay, that's fine. It may come back.
I'll text you at 3 a.m.
Sure, go ahead and do that. I'm not going to probably answer.
Which I think
I'm
it's
not
already
even-
past that for Paola and
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
it's-
absolutely past that for Paola and Leticia. Yes. And I think
It's
they're in even different.
3:43.
Oh my gosh. You guys are rock stars. I'm so grateful you're here. I feel so bad though. So let's, oh shoot, did we say when the discussion is next month? This version of it. So next month, it will be February 1st. So the first Tuesday, it'll be 6 p.m. Pacific time, 2 a.m. GMT. And I'll be sending out, I haven't written it up anywhere, but I'll be sending that. I would like to grow these discussions. So I'd like you to think about a person that you could bring along with you. If you haven't already done so, please fill out the exit slip. That is helpful. But yeah, well, I got all sorts of time if you guys want to lay some big thoughts on me. I love this part. And maybe I'll
This
just
is
go
a-
and let Adriana do it. No.
I want
Right.
to say that, Paola, I love your placeholder picture with the blue hair. That is so
brilliant.
awesome. It looks
I'm so
great. It's a
glad
great
somebody brought it
picture.
up.
The blue hair is here. Hold on. To stay.
Ah,
can't-
okay.
It is blue.
Very
nice.
The light is not favorable at
It isn't.
3:44, but it's blue. My hair is blue.
It's brilliant. I love it.
It's a
Thank you,
great
Candace.
picture.
Thank you. It's taken professionally, and I have to say that usually every year at work we have pictures taken, and they're usually rubbish. And I'm a trustee of a medical charity, and they took portraits of all the trustees, and this guy just one shot, and that was it. So
Nailed it.
So I use it everywhere, from professional stuff to dating apps, everything in
Nice.
between.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
A professional
I think it
picture
was
goes a
all
long
about the
way.
subject.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it was all about the subjects rather than the skill of the photographers, though. It was
Oh.
the skill, the lack of skill of the other photographers, I think.
obviously.
Probably.
Yes, yes. What is the
Mm-hmm.
subject of next month's? I
I think
missed
we're going to
that.
do control. Let's do control.
That's right. Okay. Okay.
I'll send that out as well here in the next week or two. And let's see, our topic so this is a discussion / Skillshare, but I also have monthly classes that are designed for case managers, advocates, counselors, therapists, coaches, teachers, basically anybody who's in the service world. Folks like Adriana. And that's discussion topic. I'll go grab that. They are less discussion and more class. So I
That's
adore
procrastination.
it's procrastination. Thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a huge one. I love it. Procrastination is a monster.
It is.
So
I
here's the
haven't,
events
I
coming
haven't
up.
worked that out in therapy. Sorry, go ahead.
The classes, the train the trainer classes are designed for advocates, teachers, case managers, that kind of folk. But they are open to everybody. So you're not required to prove that you're a case manager or somewhere, therapist or something. So So is there, what that we've talked about, I'm sorry, what about anything that we've talked about do you need clarification on?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to hearing. You mentioned that you're still kind of in development about maybe the name or of the sacred foe, or maybe further construction on the concept. I'm looking
Not
forward to
super good at
hearing
naming
more
things, by
about
the
that.
way. I don't have a
Actually, I
single
really
acronym.
like that name. I like that name.
You
but-
like the name Sacred Foe? Okay.
Yeah.
It eventually will
Has-
be a book title. I'm not gonna tease that. I'm not gonna tease that too much.
Okay.
Just gonna walk away.
Mm.
Just walk away.
Mic drop. Fun.
What do you guys think you're gonna notice going out into the world, observing yourself without judgment, or practicing observing yourself without judgment? What do you think you're gonna notice? What kind of patterns do you think will come out of this?
A happier person.
Hmm. I like that. What did we just do there, Paula? We just made a hypothesis.
Yeah.
You
More
can keep the
trust in
scientific
myself.
language thing going on over and over and over again. Candace says, trusting yourself more.
Mhm.
I like that. That's a fantastic hypothesis as well.
Yeah, maybe shedding some shame and judgment,
Yes.
chip away.
Chip away at it, undermine it. And Letitia is saying, is sacred flow self-inflicted pain, pressure, judgment, internal voice? If so, is answer shut it down by being a scientist? Yeah, that's what we're leveraging. That internal and inflicted pain, pressure, judgment, that internal voice is the opposite of distanced perspective, right? Because it's so close and so fast and so painful. So that's what the analogy of the scientist and a wild animal, that's why I'm drilling it home so hard, is because that gives us the opportunity to take a step back, to get that little bit of distance, and it doesn't take much, get that little perspective change. Yeah, it gives us some space. That's a really powerful observation, Letitia. Did that answer your question? Good deal.
Well, I'm going to log off because
Okay.
my roommate finished dinner. So
I will. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you can be here next month as well. And I will talk to you before then, I'm sure. So
and thank you everybody. It was really nice it was a really fun space to share in. So I
Thank you,
enjoyed
Adriana.
tonight.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Adriana.
Adriana.
Any other? It's that, like, not trusting my old self. Ooh, say more about that, Letitia. If you can. Broken systems, culture, education got me here.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And still, it told you that you were, here's the right things to do, and you did them. Right?
Mhm.
That's so good. Evaluating the system and not yourself. Yeah. And it's broken for everybody. which I think is amazing because we're all trying to like do the right thing in the system that isn't of service to us. That system of expectations. I think we're using the word system kind of broadly. But those
I
expectations
can
that
tell you that you actually fail or whatever, even if you don't play by the rules, and you because I can tell you, I mean, we were talking earlier in the afternoon for us, I assume morning for you,
yes.
about yes, like also playing by the rules and going with the flow and so on. And if there is someone who has been going with the flow because didn't know any better, it's me in lots of situations, and still, which is the opposite of what Letitia is describing, because she had a path, a route in her mind, and still I failed. So
It's like it's the deck is stacked, right? It is a 0-win situation. You can try to do everything the quote unquote right way. You can follow your flow, or just be aware that there's a system there, and no matter what, we are failed. So.
And I think that leads to credibility to your statement, and it's still a hypothesis that we have evolved this way to have the shame and the fear and the you know, the self-questioning and the lack of self-trust as part of the species.
but is it a
And yet
species
it's so doesn't
specific
serve
or a
us
gender specific
anymore.
within?
It doesn't serve us anymore.
To both of your points, Paula, I think it's probably a little bit of both species and gender specific, like the expectations for us as women, and to Candace, what we see as the system is the outcome of our old brains trying to keep us alive, right? And so the old brains aren't doing this stuff. It's just that this is the instinct, the pull towards always being part of the community and doing the right thing to be part of that community. That then leads us to these kind of broken systems that Letitia and Paula are talking about, the expectations that we have on ourselves, like what being a good parent is, what being a good grown-up is, but like, where am I? I'm 49. Where am I at the right place in my life for being 50? So our gender, our age, where our feet are in the world, like all of these layers of expectations, that's certainly not part of our brain. That is tribal, and that is, it's an outgrowth of it, I think is what I'm saying. And that, to Letitia's point, she's saying that the system is broken. Yes, absolutely. Like, it's a system that we can't win in, but we can also change that. And we individually in our own skulls can change that, but then we are all of us powerfully positioned to change that for other people too, like to model a different way of thinking about things.
Can we just play? Sorry, I interrupted you.
No.
Can we just instead play outside the system, as in fuck the system? I don't care. Yeah.
Yes, you can, Paula. You can do whatever you want to do.
I like this lady.
Yeah.
I like all three of you ladies.
Yeah.
Poor Adriana as well.
You can absolutely make your own, right? You don't, and it's especially if it's hard work. Yeah. Are you saying it's hard work to make your own system, or it's hard work to live in the system that's broken?
Or maybe it's hard work to ignore the system that is already there, because there is a natural tendency. You see, yes, it's the natural tendency to conform, which obviously someone with blue hair doesn't particularly tend to go with.
Well, and I would wager that all five of us are at some level of privilege within our societies. And it's a lot easier to say F the system when you have that privilege. You know, being able to live outside of that. You know, I lived as a social ignorer of rules for many years. That didn't really help me, but I had my privilege to thank for that. But I still got along, but I was because I didn't have a lack of privilege. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that.
No, thank you, because I think that assessing our privilege is hard and helps to fuck the system as well, right?
Yeah.
Like understanding the level of privilege that we have. Like as a white middle-aged woman in America, I can kind of get away with a bunch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Not everybody on this call has that as a privilege. Not everybody, you know, in my apartment 40 feet from me has that privilege. So that I think that assessing privilege is part of fucking the system. So it's the people that don't think they have any privilege that are also insanely privileged, like that dissonance, that cognitive dissonance. We're talking about cis white men. Like they don't think they're privileged at all. They think they earned everything they got in a system that was built for them by them. I think we've gotten off track, or at least I have. Sorry.
I don't think it's really a
I
wrong
want to flip
thing,
tables
but
over and
that's
drink
beside the
wine
point.
right now.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's play
Yeah.
some really raucous bagpipe music and let's riot.
Can I bang my head to your
Dropkick.
bagpipe music?
To Dropkick Murphys? Hell yes, you can.
Oh, heck yeah.
Another Scottish. Yeah,
Heck yeah.
that's also another bagpipe music. Anyways,
Oh,
thank you. Go ahead.
I was just gonna expound on something that's not really part of the topic.
I don't know. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, so I don't know. I was saying in the survey that your conversations are always high caliber and definitely insightful. And
Thank you.
it's not just you, Hannah, it is the other participants. And so thank you for being here and letting me be here too.
Thank you. I agree. The participants make the discussion. I love it. Any other stuff bubbling up? I second all of that. Thank you, Letitia. Thank you for being here. I am so grateful that you and Paolo were able to be here tonight. It made my day. To see you guys at the bookends of my day. I hope that you get some actual rest at some point. Thank you. And I see that I've got some, thank you guys for the feedback. I've got a couple folks providing feedback so far. So I appreciate that. That's very, very helpful. So.
Yeah, I'm working on mine.
Control could be a lot of fun to talk about.
It's going to be fun.
What usually happens is like we'll decide what the topic is, or I'll know ahead of time, and then I spend a whole month doing this, thinking and thinking and thinking. I put together the scaffold, and then as you saw, like it squishes quite a little bit. Like the scaffold for the conversation always adapts and changes with the people, and it's every single time. The procrastination discussion I've had multiple times, the accountability discussion, and it changes and it's beautiful every single time. And every single time it's its own thing. It's awesome. Wonderful. So I won't ever kick anybody off the call. So I'm not going to end the call until everybody's gone. So if you're waiting for me to kick you off, I can do that. But I don't want to keep anybody past where they want to be. But I literally could talk to you guys all night long.
Well, in that case, I'll just turn around, get my headphones out, and go to sleep.
I love that. Well, it sounds like Letitia's going back to sleep as well. I thank you both for being here. I'm so grateful. Thank you for
Thank you.
helping the conversation. So
Yeah.
And
Wow.
well,
Thank you.
thank you, Candace. Lovely to meet you too.
Lovely to meet you, and lovely to meet you too, Letitia. Y'all have a great night. Sleep tight.
thank you very much, Letitia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sleep well.
Bye bye.
Good night.
Bye. Hannah,
Yeah.
I really want to be there for the control one. However, I have a concert that night and they've rescheduled it 3 times. But
So maybe they'll reschedule the first time.
right, exactly.
Okay.
It could happen. It could happen. Unfortunately, this band requires that I put on face makeup, and I'm not talking about the standard kind.
I know what you're talking
So
about. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's not Kiss. It's so much better. Yeah. But I, depending on timing, I may or may not be able to be here for the conversation, or maybe I'll just
Okay.
not have the camera on.
That I mean, that'd be kind of amazing too.
Oh, having the
And
camera
make it-
on?
Yeah. So who knows? I mean, whatever you feel like doing, but yeah.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
I don't want to distract from the situation. But
It's okay.
what is that? Because like I know it
Then-
can be distracting because it looks kind of like the Joker, except
Okay.
it's a little bit more civilized, but not much more.
Well, we'll tell people Candace is in Portland, and everybody will be like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." Okay, she's in Portland, Oregon.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, she's
okay,
weird.
got it. She's weird, just like everybody else who lives up there.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I like it. Okay, I will be there then. That's good. That's good. No, consistently. I always feel like I hog the microphone, but I always have so much to say, and I just hope that it lives up to the caliber of the other participants. But I'm gonna try to get I think I've got a couple people who might serve well to be participants, but also be served well to be participants.
That is perfection. That's what I want. Yeah.
And then I have I know you mentioned in the past what the recommendations are for when your services or your contact information is offered to a friend or a reference. Basically, I want to suggest you to my friend Ruth. Well, she's a coworker, but I think she would do quite well with your services. And I'm trying to remember, and I've been trying to remember what your, excuse me for getting off center, what your recommendations are when somebody is referred to you.
Absolute best case scenario is you give me their phone number and I call
Mhm.
them.
Okay.
That doesn't happen. That almost never happens. Obviously, they need to give you permission to do that, so that they're expecting my call. That is probably the best result. Second best way is a three-way email conversation. So you send the same email, like we're both CC'd on that email, not be CC'd. Hannah, this is so-and-so. Ruth, this is Hannah, blah, blah, blah. And then we take it from there. But if you give someone my email address or phone number, they will never call me.
Mm-hmm.
That's why business cards for me don't work. They're going to intend to, and they're going to want to, and they're going to be in a ton of pain, and they're going to be miserable, and they're still never going to call because it's scary. It's scary.
Yes,
especially that first part. So that would be my
So-
recommendation.
And what I would like to do with her,
Get a phone call. Are you there? Uh-oh. All by myself.